this is a really fun course. So if you've made choices on where to be, we can go over it in just a minute. But if you're in the right place, if you want to hear more about teaching creatively, it's very much big picture. And at the end of this, you'll learn a bit about Spark and creating graphics, and we'll go into the Spark, what you can create on any kind of device. And I'll go over Spark just a little bit and some of the tools and things that happen within the Creative Cloud and other Adobe tools. But really, it's like big think piece, kind of get you excited. And at the end of this, you submit a graphic. It could take you probably 3 or 4 minutes to create, in a really cool program in Spark if you've never used it. And you submit that, and then you get a badge for Adobe Creative Educator Level 1. And there's a lot of different things that come around with that. So if that sounds cool to you, you are absolutely in the right space.
Yeah, so Adobe Spark has become one of my favorite tools. I love using it, and I find myself using it almost every day, just to create images for digital learning.
Awesome. Great. So I will make sure I've got everything working. So everybody can see my screen, Adobe Creative Educators Level 1 virtual course experience. So we'll get into more of like what Adobe is and what it does in just a moment. But this course is, again, we'll tell you what we're going to hit with this, but I'll give you a little bit of background on myself first, so you know who you're talking to. My name is Rebecca Hare. I am a designer first. I got my BFA, and I finished my studies in Italy. I worked as a designer in Italy for 10 years. And then I was frustrated because the young designers we were hiring couldn't think critically or creatively. They were just like, tell me what you want me to do. And my whole family is educators, principals, speech pathologists, psychologists. And I was complaining to them, and they were like, well, if you want to do something about it, you should get into education. So I really took that literally and moved my family back from Italy to America and got my master's in education, and have been teaching since then. I also design learning spaces because my space design from before. So I have a couple books about that. And I just all the different things that help kids be creative. So I've taught pre-K through 2, art, design, and innovation. I taught 4th grade science, and I was a design support from K through 8th grade at a school. I taught middle school. I taught all girls engineering. Currently, I teach art and design, and I'm PLTW certified in design and engineering. I teach that class as well. We partnered with a design engineering teacher, and we pair and do that. So I've kind of taught everyone from about 4 years old up. So it's exciting. And so we're, in every way we've worked with creativity with all of them. So that's me. So welcome everybody. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Is there any other housekeeping things that we should do before we get started?
No, just for those of you who are joining, just make sure that your name in Zoom matches your name for clients so we can give you the appropriate credit in Eduphoria.
Awesome. All right, so let's click through this. This is the Adobe Creative Educator program and badge. This was designed by Adobe specifically for educators. And there's content, there's curriculum, there's a lot of things you're going to find out. It actually, once you're a part of this organization, it's cool because you'll be linked with teachers across the globe. We collaborate with teachers in India. And, every time we do anything, we've got people from all over the world. And so we've got teachers collaborating on different kinds of projects, students communicating and sharing things. So it's a neat program to be a part of. So welcome. This should be fun. And at the very least, I hope you walk away a little bit more excited than you walked into. So what are the goals for today? What are we actually going to be doing? We're going to have, at the end of this, hopefully you have a clear idea of what creativity is, why it's important, and what it looks like in action. We also want you to get ideas how to foster it in students through culture, skills, and tools that they can be more creative. And we want you to learn how you continue to learn and develop as a creative educator with Adobe. There's tons of free resources made by master teachers. You can almost just go shopping for really cool resources and things in the edX. So it's really just all designed to help you feel more confident as a creative educator. So if you wouldn't mind, if you haven't done so already, if you just maybe introduce yourself in the chat, your name, that you prefer to be called by, what you teach, what you do. It's good for me to understand. I'll be like, is this a bunch of 4th grade teachers, or is everyone, high school literature, just so we have an idea of who we are. So if you wouldn't mind, awesome. Erica, 6th grade science. Alyssa Parker, 2nd grade, 1st grade. So fun, Cindy. Welcome. We got lots of things. We got AP. Oh, cool. World history, European history. Assistant principal. Awesome. ELA. Great. 11. Oh, what we have like such a great like break in people. This is going to be really fun. So I love this. Central Office, Klein High School. Awesome. 6th, 7th. Wonderful. Welcome everyone. This is incredible. I love this. So we could like, yeah, like the entire school district is here. We've got like everybody is going to do this. They're great. They're great. So we run the gamut of everything. Welcome everybody. Like I said before, I've taught pre-K through high school. I teach high school right now. And again, just got done with teaching on Friday. So it's my very beginning of my summer vacation. I'm really excited to be in education. Ironically, just the other day, one of my students, I was telling him about my design career. The whole class was like, well, this is why you want to think this way. And he was like, why would you leave such a cool career to be a teacher? Like poo-pooing on teachers. And I was like, are you kidding me? It's the most incredible career move I've ever made. I'm constantly solving problems. It's really amazing. I was like, why would you think that that would be not such an upgrade? And he was like, oh, I never thought about teachers that way. And I really think that, we do the most incredible work, and it can be very stressful at times, but it's also really, really rewarding. So welcome everybody. I think we're the best group of people on the planet. So hitting creativity right away. What are some common myths about creativity? If you wouldn't mind throwing that in the chat. What do you think is a myth about creativity that we all hear? We're talking about creativity all the time. It kind of gets more and more popular every year. So what have you got? What's some myths you have for creativity? And I'll read them off as they come into the chat. Yeah, it's natural. Not everyone's creative. Either you have it or you don't. It's inherent. Absolutely. Not everyone's creative. Some people aren't. You have to be artsy to be creative. Analytical people are not creative. The lack of what and how to draw like a superstar. Yeah, you have to be artistic. There are so many myths in creativity. It's something you're born with. It requires total freedom. My students think they should be able to do whatever they want to express their creativity. You're either a creative person or you're not. And these are all things that we keep throwing around this word, but it's really hard to define. And it's something that we don't always know how we feel, like what creativity really means to us. And it's none of these things. These are all just myths, but we perpetuate them. And so out of curiosity, if you wouldn't mind putting into the chat, what is your current creative sense of self? We have two kinds of, this is our Likert scale. So I still need to discover the true depths of my creative potential, or I truly understand my creativity. I'm a creative powerhouse. Where are you right now this morning? And I know this for me kind of changes in a range depending on the day that I had, but we've got 5, 6, 3, 7. Oh, this guy says, I'm a powerhouse. Awesome, Teresa. Love it. Need to discover more about me. Great. Awesome. So wherever you are, we've got great numbers in here. This is not a right or wrong thing. No brain cells left. I know. I feel like I've lost my brain cells over the year. Well, we're going to get you, hopefully at the end of this, you're going to realize that you've been doing a lot more creative work than you thought. And I think that for me, this all started because I did my master's thesis in creativity. I learned how to give the Torrance test of creative thinking. And I noticed as I work with school districts, there somewhere is always written, we want to influence creativity in students, but there's no directions how. Creativity always feels like something just a little bit out of reach, something that teachers know that they want to foster in their kids, but exactly how to do that. And that's because we have so many myths on that. We don't have a shared definition of what creativity really is, what it really means. And that's because there's actually more than 250 definitions of creativity. You can Google them. There's differing opinions on it, but all in all, I think this one's really great. In science, we define creativity as an idea that is novel, good, and useful, making connections between different ideas. And that's Michael Gripko, who does a lot of research on creativity. He's a neuroscientist. And so people tend to trust that more than they do artists. So just thinking we've got novel, good, and useful, making connections between different ideas. And then he goes on to say, and this is the next part that I think is really fascinating, it's our brains doing what they do. That's it. It's just who we are. It's the architecture. It's how we were designed. So everyone is inherently creative. This is what sets us apart from other animals. It's the way our neural pathways have been designed. We're just inherently creative. But it doesn't always come out. And so the research right now is interesting on how we've sort of lost some of our creativity as our students go through school. If you've ever heard of the Torrance test of creative thinking, you can throw something in the chat. It it's something that was developed by E. Paul Torrance in 1966. I actually got to work with one of his people that he as students, and he designed it because he knew he had these bright, brilliant students, but they were not doing well on standardized tests. And he wanted to find another way to measure their brilliance, their thinking, their creativity and ingenuity. And so he designed this test. And by doing this, he was able to prove that you actually become more creative doing this work again and again. So I learned how to give the test and how to administer it and how to assess it. And there's norms reference measures and criterion reference measures and all of these different terms. But this is the interesting data from this. And if everyone would just check for a second that you're muted, we've got some people in the background kind of coming in. I don't know if we can mute them, or you can check yourself and make sure you're muted. You might accidentally have some noise coming through that you didn't mean to. But this is the data that comes out of this. And if you've ever watched Sir Ken Robinson's very famous TED Talk, I think there's probably not very many educators that someone didn't play it at some faculty meeting at some point. This is the data he's talking about. This is the Torrance test is what he's talking about. And he says that, we're teaching the creativity out of kids. And this is specifically what he means with this. These are the 5 ways that norms reference measures that you can measure creativity. We won't get into those. I do a whole other session about that, which is the most fun. But you notice that it starts from K, goes up, hits like it either flattens out or it dives down after 4th, 5th, 6th grade. And this is like a longitudinal study. So you can read the article yourself. It's Creativity Crisis, the Decreasing Creative Thinking Scores on the Torrance test. And what's interesting is our IQ scores kept going up, but our creativity scores were going down. So the way in which we're engaging students is not continuing to foster their creativity. And there's a point in there where that happens. And I think, when I ask people, why do we think that this happens? We get all sorts of things like they're hitting puberty, schools suddenly change, what they need to be doing is different. We don't really know why, but we know that this is happening. And for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about how important it is that we recognize this and move past this. And we've got some great data points for that. But it's what we don't want to be happening for our kids. And so we'll get into that. So why is developing creativity in a student important? There's probably more than 500 ways that it's really important, or reasons it's important for students to develop their creativity. I'm going to give you 3. And so hopefully one of these will resonate with you if you're not already on board the creativity train. But it's really about, it helps keep people learn, it helps their work, and it helps their future success in life. So first of all, Steinberg says, students who are taught content using analytical, practical, and creative thinking skills are more successful across disciplines. He also says, in short, by encouraging students to think creatively, to create, imagine, suppose, discover, and invent, teachers can help students improve their achievement. So what does all that mean? All of Steinberg's research basically says, you want kids to do better in your class, you need to teach in ways that foster their creativity. They'll just do better across all disciplines. So if we only care about kids in school, bringing more creative expression and thinking into their lives is going to help them in school in general. The next one is the Future of Jobs report. And I've been watching this for years. Creativity keeps going up higher and higher, and like what the most important thing is. And so creativity is one of the most in-demand skills for employees. And LinkedIn did this whole research on finding that people who could prove that they had creative problem solving skills, that they were more likely to be hired than people who could not. And so it's something that people want within the workforce. It's a very important piece. And then finally, this is my favorite one. Creative potential can be a better predictor of lifetime achievement. It's a more accurate indicator than IQ, high school grades, or peer judgments. And this to me really, when I was doing my research, really stood out reading this whole piece, because they found that more than grades, more than IQ, students, and they would assess them, were more likely to have lifetime achievement. And they mean like more degrees earned, more restaurants opened, more books written, that they achieved, they were happier in life. And since we really just care about our students' future success, really fostering their creativity is the most important thing. And it's a better indicator than IQ, which to me is so fascinating that we focus so much on some of our standardized test scores, but I don't know anybody who's going around and really, infusing creativity in every single aspect of our lives. So curious to you, why do you think creativity is important? Why did you show up this morning? If you would mind putting that into the chat, that would be lovely. So I told you my big 3 reasons. There's a lot more. Why are you here to be a more creative educator? Why is it important? demonstrate mastery of their learning. Adaptability is survival, so true. Make learning interesting for my students and think outside the box. I want to reach my students. Being creative makes learning fun. It's so true. Oh my gosh, this is going so fast. This is brilliant. I love this. I want to be able to assess what my students are doing without depending on tests. I love that. This is true. It helps them become lifelong learners. Completely agree with you. To incorporate my content into being creative. This is wonderful. To encourage development of the whole mind. Oh, I love this. You guys are the most amazing. This is brilliant. Creativity is in the air. I breathe it in kiddos. I love this. This is going so fast. Ability to express yourself. So it's important, and it's important for millions of reasons. And it is something that we can actually foster. I think one of the reasons why it feels that out of reach, it feels like something we're like, okay, I kind of get it, but I don't understand it, is because we don't put it as something super important within our schools in the way that we do. Like with literacy, in every one of our elementary schools, we have literacy specialists, but where are our creativity specialists? We're the person that's making sure that every teacher feels empowered to tweak their lessons, to be fostering and developing creativity with them. And I love this from Sir Ken Robinson. He says, creativity is as important as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status. But I think that the reason why we don't have creativity specialists in every building working with people is because it's so hard to define. It's hard to understand. It's hard to pinpoint. And my hope today is that there's so many ways we can really dig into it. Like I said, there's more than 20 ways to assess it, but we're going to go for just a few today. And what I want you to think about is we're going to be using this mental model. I think it's difficult because creativity looks like this. This is the process of design squiggle by Damian Newman. I love this. And that creativity piece happens in the squiggly line space. A lot of teachers and education and the way that curriculum is designed, for many of us, we're really comfortable in that straight line space. We give content, there's an assessment, and there's not that search for things. And if we think about this as our visual metaphor, that when someone's being creative, it's about connecting different ideas together. They're going to be like a bee going from flower to flower, getting a little bit of pollen every single time until they create something completely unique for themselves, something that is their own discovery. And then, of course, they own their learning so much more. They start to create their identity. So we have to find more opportunities for kids to be in that squiggly line space. That's that divergent thinking space. So that's our visual metaphor for the rest of this presentation. And so we're going to keep pushing ourselves into that. So what can we do to help students learn to navigate the squiggly line space? This is what we're going to cover. First, we're going to recognize creativity when it happens. If you can't recognize it, then you cannot encourage it, you cannot give feedback on it, you cannot foster it. We're going to provide opportunities for students to be creative. We're going to be intentional about it. We're going to foster a creative culture. You can't do the first two if kids don't feel psychologically safe to be creative, to take risks, to be courageous in their thinking. We're going to provide feedback skills to students for ourselves and for them so that they can continue to iterate and get better in their creativity and branch out. We're going to provide access to creative tools. That might be paper and glue. It might be something like Spark or Photoshop. It might be Minecraft. All of those things that allow students to create. And finally, as educators, we have to keep continuing to learn and develop and fostering our own creativity, because creative teaching is just as important as learning through a creative means. It's important for all of us. That excitement, that fun that you all talked about in the chat is important for all of us. So how to recognize creativity when you see it. This part is the most fun for me because, like I said, I did my master's thesis in creativity and I learned to give the Torrance test. So in that, there's 5 norms reference measures. For those of you who have done any kind of research, you probably know what that means. And then there's 13 criterion reference measures. So that means within one way of teaching, there's lots of creativity tests out there. There's almost 20 ways that we could find creativity in what students do. And I say this with like the importance that I thought I was like the most not the most creative. I thought that I was a very creative person. I went to design school. I worked as a designer. I designed MRI machines. I designed spaces. I designed all these things. I was a creative director. I was like, I get creativity. I didn't understand it until I learned how to give this test. And it changed the way that I realized that I was thinking about it in an abstract way, and there's actually really tangible ways we can encourage students to be more creative. So we're only going to focus on 3, but we could spend a week talking about all the different things. And I'll mention a couple more at the end, but I think, and once this starts to resonate, you're gonna be like, oh, I recognize it all the time. And when I can say to a student, oh, I love how you did this, keep that up, that's what we foster in our creativity. So how do we recognize it? One of the easy ones is originality. This seems normal to people to think about, but it's a little bit different than we might think. So if in originality, we have to say, is the student's thinking or work original for them? Did they look at a problem in a new way? Kindergartners are probably not going to come up with something no one else has ever thought of. Neither are many of us, but when the thinking's original to that student, that's creative. They've come up with something new by combining different ideas. So that has to be really encouraged for students to come up with ideas. And that's really tied to divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is more web-like, and convergent thinking is more linear. So it helps make us, divergent thinking helps us make connections. So again, we're going back to that visual metaphor of going through lots of things to kind of combine and come up with a new vision for your thinking. So originality, you also can't come up with original thoughts. There's a study that like the first 7 thoughts you have are unoriginal. So, helping kids come up with multiple ideas and digging into that brainstorming piece is how we've helped foster originality in our students. And then to recognize like, wow, like that's a great, I never would have thought of that, even if it doesn't work out, even if it's impossible, to encourage that courageous kind of thinking out of the box that we want for kids. So recognizing originality when it happens and calling it out and encouraging kids is a first step to helping them. The next one, I'm in the wrong chat. There we go. Elaboration. This is one that, like, when I learned about this, it was awkward for me to understand, but is the work well developed? Has a student elaborated on their ideas and added detail and complexity to their work? Now, in the Torrance test, when they're giving it, it's a little bit different because some people are really strong in elaboration and some people are really strong in originality. And you think about if you had everyone on a team who was really good at just coming up with ideas, and we had no one who could take it and make it happen. And, think about our central office people, think about our secretaries and all the people who we say, we have this idea, and then they make everything happen. They send out the emails, they buy the cups, they do the stuff. Those are elaborators. And very rarely do they get tapped for being super creative, but it is a measurable thing in that elaboration piece. And in the figural test and the drawing test, it's like how many lines you add to something that you sit and you kind of dig in. So, and that's something that's easy to encourage and support in people by saying, hey, why don't you go back into that and like dig a little bit deeper, add something more complex to that. And to recognize it in people when we say, hey, let's do this. And they say, great, I've created this, and this. And you can go, wow, you've really elaborated on this. This is so great. I love how you've dug in. And that's something that often gets overlooked. So most of my people, I don't know if any of you guys want to say in the chat, it's that you might be an elaborator and no one's ever really recognized it. But I know that I'm more of the originality person. And then when I get to work with someone who's an elaborator, we're like an unstoppable team. So we can't always have everything, but it's, or that's not your strongest form of creativity, but it's really fun to work with people. And when they recognize like, wow, I'm super creative. And I just thought it was like, I didn't have the right name for it. So going on, appropriateness. This one is another fun one because you think, does the work or thinking meet the criteria or learning goal? Are the ideas meaningful, useful, and relevant? So it doesn't actually have to work for an idea to be creative. So the example that I like to use in this is, if I gave all my students an assignment to, design a way for us to get to the moon. And somebody's like, we're going to take a giant piece of paper and fold it like an airplane and slingshot it. We know it would burn up in the atmosphere. But the idea is aiming toward the right goal. They're trying to get up to the moon. So it is appropriate. It doesn't have to be successful to be creative and to be appropriate. It has to be aiming in the right way. And that's where, humor can come in when we think through things as well as a great creative piece. Anna's an elaborator. Go, Anna. So here we go. Originality, elaboration, and appropriateness. So this is what we want. If we can recognize these things, that we can see that on almost any learning experience, and giving students time and space to elaborate on their ideas or come up with something new, and then having them even self-check and you check, it's like, was that aiming toward the learning goal or not? But again, like there's so many other ways. One of my favorite ways that's in the Torrance test is through humor. I had some tests that made me laugh out loud because of what students had done. Emotional expressiveness is another. Fluency, which is how many ideas you can come up with. There's just so many different ways we can recognize creativity. But if you can start with these three, you can catch a ton of it and really help foster that in students. Lucia says, one of the joys of being a librarian, reaching every child, stirring their ideas, guiding their direction, using literacy to help them discover they're creative as designers of their own world. So beautiful. Very true. So these are three ways I hope that you all can take and start to recognize it in students. And out of curiosity in the chat, if any of you want to add, any one of these kind of like light a light bulb for you is something new that you hadn't thought of before? Or have you heard of all of these before? You're very familiar? Giving time for people to think. Teresa says, very interesting. It's familiar for Mary. Never heard of it. Aisha, yeah, hadn't thought of appropriateness. Awesome. Librarians seem to have every single creative domain. It's very true. Appropriate is not familiar. And, you know, I wasn't familiar with appropriateness either. And it totally makes sense to me now that, you know, that's especially when doing creative tasks in a school environment. Structured in a new way. Awesome. I have heard of the other two. Great. Yep. That's awesome. So elaboration was new for me when I did my research. And now I see it so much in my students' work that I'm able to like really foster it. And when I first did this workshop like 6 years ago or some version of this, it was with art teachers. And like one of them started crying. It's like, I didn't realize I was missing a lot of things in students. Like I didn't have the words I needed. And so sometimes hitting this is really kind of is fun to have that word to identify it. So here are some teaching examples. Again, we're going at this really kind of fast and furious, and we'll have time to dig in. So we have time to dig into Spark, but every discipline has the potential to require students to use their content in new ways. If we want students' understanding of content to benefit from the thinking about content in multiple ways, their creativity must focus on the content itself, not just the format in which things are presented in. So we really have to think about fostering creative thinking. And I think so often in education, and I fight with this, and you know, I think with a lot of educators, where we have intellectual discussions about it, is that there's creative thinking, and then there's creative expression. And I feel like a lot of times we want to add creativity into our learning experiences by having them create something at the end, like it's the cherry on top. But we can actually weave creativity into every moment of that, just by the way that we pose some questions or we approach the content. And that's going to help really deepen that understanding and practice that creativity. So our rates stop hitting the peak at 5th grade and then diving down. We keep giving them opportunities to do that creative thinking, and they can continue to grow as creative learners. So we're going to play a little game called What Does the Thinking Look Like? It's not really a game, but it's kind of fun. So we're going to give 2 different examples, and then I'm going to show you a little illustration of like what that thinking looks like, using that same visual metaphor of like what's happening inside of that mysterious head. So in the learning experience number 1, in science, a student is asked to answer a question. And learning experience number 2, in science, a student is asked to develop a new question. So what does the thinking look like in these 2 experiences? Well, in the first one, there is a right answer to that question potentially. And so it's more that straight line thinking, it's convergent thinking. There's an answer that they're trying to give. In number 2, it is more divergent thinking. That student is going to have to draw on all the things that they have learned about a topic. What new way can we think about it? And it's going to, having students change perspectives and look at it from multiple ways is a really amazing way to foster creativity in students. Just merely asking them to form a question that they don't know the answer to helps develop their creativity. So here's an opportunity in a class that I want to increase more creativity with my students. Instead of having them answer questions, having them develop questions. That's an automatic like win for creativity and a pretty easy thing to do. The next one Writing example. The man opened the door. The next writing example, the sly and crooked man pushed against the door as it creaked open. So what are we kind of focusing on here? We're really thinking about elaboration, connecting multiple ideas and things together. So here we've connected just a couple of things together. There's not a lot of elaboration in that. And in the next example, we see that a lot of different things have connected. And through that, choices had to be made. A lot of things had to be discarded in the word choice. So there was a lot of connecting and searching and buzzing around trying to find those things. We also have added a richness to this, an elaboration to it that, now we started to tell a story, we've added some sort of depth to things. So elaboration doesn't mean more is better, but elaboration is really when a student digs in to craft something and maybe does multiple versions of it and has a number of ways in which they've attempted it, and they're going to draw on something that's going to, at the end, going to be their final piece. So it's not just one and done. And that's where, as educators, we can keep encouraging students to go back, add something to this, try it from a new perspective, do it in this way. And that's going to help increase their elaboration and, of course, then increase their creative thinking. Last one. This is what I did in when we first all went onto like our lockdown and pandemic teaching. And I bring this up every once in a while because it was so much fun for my students. But a challenge I see often, some version of this, and I think it's really great, is make a new cover of the book we're reading. That's that kind of like, let's do something creative with what we're doing. It's really a fun exercise. The alternative to this is make 3 book cover designs of our current book, then discuss with the class which is the most compelling cover. So what does the thinking look like in this experience? And I don't know if any of you have had your students do creative work like this, that they do something like, is this an A? Is this okay? Is this good enough? What do you want from me? Even with really well-planned rubrics, students don't know if what they've created. However, when you ask students to create multiples, then all of a sudden the thinking is very different. They create all 3. And then they compare and contrast. So we move them from just thinking creatively to thinking constructively, thinking critically, then collaborating and communicating with other students about which one's great. And this is where the lively discussions happen. This is where then they say, no, of these 3, this is the strongest. I've talked with 4 people, I've gotten feedback, made some modifications, and I'm solidly going to turn this in. And so there's no uncertainty when they turn it in because they've done all that evaluation themselves. And, it's funny because with Spark, I teach graphic design as well. These are some of the book covers my students designed. A number of them are reading 1984. And so, there is no right answer to this. There is meeting the criteria and then exploring, but the conversations these students had around this, it was fascinating because they would get into the meat of the literature and talk about, what is it really about? How does that photograph express that content, that idea, the theme of the book? Should it have been this? And then they'll feedback, they'll iterate, they'll do different things. And in Spark, if you've not used it before, honestly, if your students can open up a phone and click on some things, they can actually create amazing things in Spark. Each one of these things probably took 10 or 15 minutes. So it doesn't have a big pull for them to learn a complex graphic program. They can do this really easily and simply so that we don't spend the time on learning the tool, we spend the time on the thinking. So here are some other ones my students made. And this conversation came out like, is it about an era? Is it about a city? Or is it about a man? And again, I don't teach literature, but my students' conversations about it were so great that I called our lit teacher down and was like, can you please help foster this because there's some great things happening here. So, and these are easy because all we did was reformat and change the kind of type of question, the requirements we've given of students. We said, don't just do one, do a few, and then tell me which one's best. And again, that's that way that then we're going to push them to be more critical thinkers. And having kids work in multiples helps them foster their originality. It helps them have more time to elaborate. And it absolutely helps them then go to that appropriateness piece and think which one is the best. And here we had discussions like, well, my grandpa would have bought that one, but I think my aunt would buy this one. And they had all these personality things with this. So it's really, really fun. So if you wouldn't mind, and there's so many of us, this might have to be, I'll try to read this quickly, but in the chat, if you wouldn't mind telling us a recent task that you have given that supports creativity. My hope with this is after you've seen those examples, you're like, oh, I've been doing this all along. And this is a great moment to kind of share this out with some of your colleagues and like, this is what I've been doing to foster creativity. Yeah, and Kaylee says, Missy, I can see you doing this in your library. It's a really, if you've not used Spark before, once you learn Spark, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, why wasn't I using this before? I asked students to invent something that would be able to clear the Pacific garbage patch. Wow, that's awesome, Joy, I love that. We did a one pager, had students make a geometry town, and some of it was as, oh, that's so great, I love that geometry town. Create a class shanty after reading Treasure Island, create jobs for each other. Market, the kids made their own products to sell for goods. Oh, so much creative thinking in all of these. Made a geometry assignment for a world, geo assignment for each section had a country information. That's awesome. The mythology project, they're able to take the basic build of a 3D model and construct their own version. I had some using coding websites, clay, paper. That's so great when they get to choose their own media to use. And that's so many great choices in that, to interpret with words and visuals. We do a choice board where students have different ways of expressing knowledge. Some of them did art from time period, wrote something from the time period. And again, that's so great because you're asking them to change perspectives, and in all the creative literature, an easy thing to do is have them take a new perspective on and create something from that perspective. That's such a, like, we can almost do that in any way, in any kind of discipline. That's such a great thing. But we do an ideation phase, progress check, peer critique, remake it if necessary. It's so great, Matthew. That's like, poetry choice board for National Poetry Month. Love it. Create a robot showing different types of energy. So fun. So all of these get the students really, really thinking. So you've been doing this all along. Maybe you didn't know like it was called everything. So we're going to keep moving forward, but thank you so much everyone for sharing that. So how can you cultivate creativity in your students and your culture? This is something that we said before, you know, like you can identify it and you can't give tasks for students to be creative if it's not a safe space to do so. And so there's a few things that we can all do and easy changes we can make to our spaces to help foster that. I've been obsessed with this for years because I worked in a creative agency and we had some people we worked with that were so negative that like it threw the whole vibe off. And it's hard in a class of multiple students with multiple personalities. Oh, not that the students have multiple personalities, but you get what I mean. That, you know, to create a space that's really, truly safe for everybody. But one of the first things we can do to help students feel more creative is to have a creative process. So in the ACE program, we have a process that we like, which is called Define, Create, Reflect. If students, and I'll go to the next slide, this is, if students can understand why, who, and what they're creating for, then they can get to creating. So often we say, okay, go make a poster, go do this, but there's no really thinking in the why. Why are you creating for this? Why did you make that choice? So really having students dig into that a little bit deeper and then create that they're going to observe. They're going to observe their surroundings. They're going to explore with lots of ideas. They're going to really engage in learning different methods of creation. And then finally, they're going to express their thinking in some way. If you know Harvard Project Zero's Studio Habits of Mind, those are words that you're familiar with. And then finally, at the end of creating, there's that reflection piece. They can quickly reflect, they can do an in-depth reflect, and they can share out their work. But if we don't go through each one of these phases, I think that oftentimes we get something kind of halfway created. We're not engaging all of those creative thinking abilities. And at the end of this, when you submit your, this is like side note, when you submit your graphic that you're going to create in about 20 or 30 minutes, you are actually going to, we'll bring you in as a creative educator, you'll get your badge. And then we send out an email with this. There's 72 slides that have prompts for each one of these topics that you can bring into your class and have kids thinking more creatively that kind of fold into looking at all content in new ways. So that's what you get as an Adobe Creative Educator, one of the things. So first of all, give kids a creative process, just something. And if they can repeat that again and again, the neat thing is that when they're out in the world and you're not there to help them solve the problem, they'll know what to do next. And that's one of the best things we can give students, to say, what do you do next? Because we're not always there with them. Next, we want to think about how we're fostering students. And we've got two kinds of focuses. We have the individual, and then we have the collective. We have to be giving lots of opportunities for these. So the individual, every student needs to learn skills and attitudes of creativity. And that's done through practice and practice and practice. Come up with ideas, get feedback on them, try again. They get to practice those. The next, the collective, and said, we have to create a safe space for flexible thinking for all learners. That's creating a psychologically safe space. So having norms around how your classroom runs, that it's safe for everybody to say what they're thinking without sarcasm, without criticism, and that every student knows that there's multiple paths for each student to be successful. There is not this one way to be right or one kind of project to do, but their own way of interpreting that work can be successful. And when students feel that way, we've created a culture safe enough for them to develop individually with that support of that collective. And that psychologically safe space, I can't say it enough. It's such a hard thing sometimes to get, especially certain age groups. If you've had your students who have just discovered sarcasm and really trying to make them feel comfortable, and also create spaces we don't do that when we're talking about each other's work. I've been struggling with that for years. So it's not easy, but when I explicitly tell my students, like, this has to be a psychologically safe space for everybody. Sarcasm is not welcome here. And when we're talking about projects, it's not welcome here in these spaces, because I show them like brain scans of like what happens when people don't feel comfortable. I was like, my job is to make you the most creative you can be. So getting to that, the other thing you can really do is, and this is pulled from an article about business. So it's really great ideas on how to foster creative culture, but I think this works really well in school. So when I work with school leaders on spaces, especially in physical spaces, we go through this as well. But the first thing we need to do is make being creative a goal. It's a goal. I set that out in every single one of my projects. Like, I don't really care what the outcome of this project looks like. I'm grading your process really, but I really care that you have pushed yourself creatively. That's what we're actually assessing. That's what we care about. So students know that creativity is a goal. If you're a building administrator and your teachers know that you want them to be able to teach creatively, you want your students to have this, it's going to change how people act. Giving time for exploration is really important. As teachers, we don't have enough time to explore with other people and come up with sometimes really rich and incredible content, but our students need that as well. They need that time to sit there and dig in. It can't be so paced that we're just rushing through things. It has to we need time to percolate. There's a lot of interesting information about the brain and how, when you focus on something, you walk away and you're not focused on it. That's when like your subconscious works and your creative mind works. And it needs time to do that. Recognition and support. This is where it's important, our language we work with students on. We need to encourage their attempts and be supportive and non-controlling. So it was awesome. I'm so glad you went for that, even though it didn't work out. I love that. That's what I love, is that you went for that. Like and you it's okay. Like, students are worried that what they're going to turn in isn't going to get the right grade. If we can change our grading practices, we're encouraging those attempts, we're encouraging that creative courageousness. We can change that for kids. The group context, this is something as teachers we should do, I think, so much more. I feel like I'm trying to do that for myself, but I love this term, constructive controversy. And we don't mean diverse groups, just diverse age groups, but we have so many meetings in my district where it's like all the English teachers are meeting together and art teachers are meeting together. When we mix things up, we create constructive controversy. How would a science teacher approach this with an art teacher and with an English teacher? We all have such different areas of expertise. We can craft things that are truly innovative for our students, because we create that constructive controversy. Our students as well can be in groups like that. So being conscientious to not always just be working with the same people who have the same experience. That's going to help foster our own creativity. And then the social context, risk-taking is encouraged and uncertainty is not avoided. In my practice, often get up in front of my students and like, okay, we're going to try this project. I don't know how it's going to turn out. This is what I want for you. And so we talk about being the lead learner. In my class, I tell them I'm the lead risk taker. I will try something new. It will fail. I'll get feedback from my students. I'll try again. Because if I can risk and be uncomfortable at times, I'm giving them permission to do that as well. So out of curiosity in the chat, if anything new here for any of you, kind of something you want to try out this next year and with intentionality, maybe making creativity a goal in your class. If you want to add that into the chat, that would be awesome. Or you can be like, none of this, not interested. Giving students a creative process. Definitely being intentional about a safe space. Yeah, I think that's like for me, that's something I keep working on. I love the idea of being the lead risk taker. Yeah, it's funny, and they love you for it. It's like it totally changes everything. Giving more time, providing a safe culture or mindset to be creative. Definitely going to share this resource with their teachers, make sure they know it's there to use. Yeah, awesome. Flexibility, discussion about safe spaces, encouraging their risk taking. I think that all of those things can really help them. And Catherine says, I like the idea of making a creative goal, creating a creative culture or mindset. As a librarian, I foster a safe space and creativity, especially during makerspace time. So great. That's really important. And Amanda says, yes, being the lead risk taker and creating that safe space is a huge part of what we do in kindergarten. Oh my gosh, I know, I love kindergarten. I miss my kindergartners. They are so flexibility and more time to express. Awesome. This is great. So a safe place to be themselves. I think that that's what everybody really wants. And, if we can be vulnerable with our students, we can create that safe space with them. And so sometimes that's it, like, I'm going to take a risk. I don't know how it's going to go. And I do a lot of metacognitive, like, wow, that didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. Let me try that again. And Stacy says, I want to help increase the creativity process in my classroom. Awesome. Fantastic. Cool. Okay, let's keep moving forward. So what types of feedback help develop creativity best? There are some that really help develop it, and there are some that can kind of hinder it at different phases. And so we're really, if we want our students to learn and grow, we know that feedback is really essential. Whether it's peer feedback or self-assessment or informal or formal evaluations, giving meaningful feedback to students on their creative thinking or work is really, really important. And so what are the two different ways? And this doesn't mean giving a grade. Assessing creativity is not the act of grading, it's the act of helping a student's creativity grow. That's really the key. We're trying to help their creativity grow, not ending up with a B, C, or D. It's not a grade, it's about growth. And so the ways we can do that, these are two different kinds of assessment, and informal, formal, or whatever. A lot of students are used to this kind, and that's assessing of creativity. And that's when we evaluate how well students did at a creative task. That's when, like, is this going to be an A? Is this good enough for a B? What grade is this? And what happens with that is we focus on the finished project, and it's, it feels like fail or pass kind of piece. Instead, when we assess for creativity, and that's when we evaluate the creative skills and processes it takes to be creative. So we're really assessing the process that kids are going through. Did you come up with lots of ideas? Did you get feedback? Did you create this thing? Did you iterate on it? What did you grow and learn from that? That helps them develop creativity, because then anything they're going to create at this age, it's not going to go into a museum. It's not going to be something that, those are just points of growth. And if they keep getting to practice those points of growth, then they're going to eventually really create things that they're really very proud of. And so that giving feedback for creativity is really how we're going to foster creativity in our students. So I don't actually grade. I mean, I don't grade final products in my students' work. They have to turn one in, but what I do is, have they followed the process? Did they do this? Did they do this? Did they reflect at this point? Then at the end, they write a reflection of how they've grown throughout the process. And that's what that's what I'm looking for. Do they meet those learning goals? Is there evidence of that within this whole process? It's not a finished piece thing. And then when students know that, ironically, their work gets better, because they're not worried about that final piece. They're worried about the process. And when you engage in a creative process, almost automatically your work's going to be a whole lot better. So they end up learning that engaging in that is what helps them create quality things. Aisha says, this is really good. I see kids getting grades on projects in the product and not on the process. Yep, it's true. And it's an easy thing to switch. And, when we know differently, we do differently. So it's something, but I think it's such a neat thing, because not everyone's skills are the same. And it's a really, as an art teacher, I'll tell you, I have kids walk in like, I'm not an artist, I can't do this. And someone along the way gave them some sort of a feedback. They assessed them, they gave them a grade at some point that was assessing their creativity. And that shot them down, and that stopped them from wanting to try. And our job as educators is to not do that, is to really keep building them up. And as then they come out of school and they think, I'm not a creative person. And we know that that's important for them to know that they are. So this is my favorite feedback method. These are digital cards you get as well. But this is called tag feedback. Not sure if anyone else uses this. It's been around for a while, but it's my favorite. And I like to do it with sentence starters. I find this the best thing. I've done this with first graders. I've done this with like adults, but the sentence starters are, I like the way you. And so in being really specific, I like the way you added this and I like your word choice. Not, hey, it's cool. You know, like we get, if feedback's not specific, we can't do anything with it. Then the question phase is really great. Why did you, or how did you do something? This is where we get a deeper insight. Like, hey, did what I create make sense? If people are asking me questions, or the how did you is so fascinating, because my students will jump up and be like, hey, how did you create that? And then like they're co-teaching and showing each other how to do stuff. It's really fantastic. So that's a great question to ask. Why did, or how did you? Why did you make that choice? How did you do that thing? Can you show me? And then finally, I like this sentence the best. I've tried all things. I've been in critique since I was like 20. Maybe it would be even better if you tried, or it would be really cool if you tried this. And then what happens is, instead of giving a criticism, and this is feedback during a project, right? Not at the end. All of a sudden, we are having that student think about their work from a totally different perspective. We're actually enhancing their creativity by having them look at what they've created from someone else's eyes. And so we gain from that. And then the person that we're giving feedback to gains from it. And so in that case, it's like, oh, it'd be even cooler if you made it really big and there were lights on it, or it would be so cool if you, I would love to be able to like get inside of this thing, or it would be so neat if I could look down from the top of it, whatever that feedback is. And we start to practice those things. Then at the end, the person receiving feedback has to say, thank you, I'll take it into consideration. They don't have to do it. Because what a lot of times students have been kind of cultured to do is become reactive and defensive when they get feedback from people. No, I couldn't, there's nothing in there. And they have to say, thank you, I'll take into consideration. They don't have to do it, but they have to consider it. And this is key for creating that fostering that culture where people feel comfortable to say, oh, it'd be really neat if you added that. And then next time when someone's creating, they might pull that person over and go, what do you think I could do with this? And that person go, oh, I love this. I'm curious how you did that. And I think it'd be so cool if you did this. And then that creates that constant feedback loop for our students. And by the way, when I talk with, when I do like my little spiel at open house, and I have all the business people that come in for their students, I talk about how feedback is so important and we practice it. And I always have a few people in business come up to me, parents in business come to me and be like, oh my gosh, I really am so happy to hear that someone's doing this, because I'm hiring all these people and they have no idea how to give feedback at all. It's so awful. And I can't even believe it. So thank you for teaching my student. Like, I don't care how their artwork looks like, but I hope that they know how to give quality feedback to people. So yeah. And then Lucy says, I love teaching children how to use responsible, respectful conversation. It's really true. Yeah. And the feedback is amazing. It's a great administrator that worded her feedback in the same way, and it was so much more powerful and engaging. That's great. Yay, administrators who do that. Have y'all ever watched the Jeff Goldman Food Network as he goes through the very creative process of designing amazing cakes? Lots of what ifs. Yes, it's so true. And that's when we can get in that what if space. That's such a magical space to be in. And in a creative environment, oh my gosh, what if your story started off with this? What if instead you added this to your science experiment? It's that kind of a space that we want to create our kids in. And that what if space is that originality, is that elaboration space, is fostering all those kinds of things we know. So I hope that you can incorporate some more feedback into whatever it is you're doing. I didn't do it enough this past year. I think COVID kind of threw off a lot of my great practices. That's why it's exciting to talk about this now and get like energized for next year. I put it in like my big goals of we're going to spend more time with feedback. So creatives are always also learning new tools. Tool learning can be very intimidating. I know it was for me. I almost dropped my program at university because I thought the tools were too complicated. But my first year in design school, I had a professor say, you don't learn a tool. You have to learn how to learn tools. You have to learn how to learn them, relearn them, unlearn them, because what the tool you're going to learn today in 6 months will be different, and 6 years will be different. And in order to survive in this world, you have to be a learner of things. You can't ever know them. And if you've ever used any of the Creative Cloud things, you'll know like weekly buttons are moving in new places. My students are like, where did this go? I'm like, it's different now. And that's how their whole world is going to be. That's how our whole world is now. So first of all, you don't have to know tools to have your students use them. You don't have to be an expert of them. You can just be like, let's Google that together. So being courageous and like, let's try this tool out. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. No one expects you as a teacher to know every single tool. I don't. I don't know everything. And I teach these tools and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I'll tell you how I would look for it. So just thinking that, I know that there have been like 27 versions of Illustrator since I started using it. And it wasn't even called Illustrator then, it was like 2000. So it's going to keep evolving for them. So just giving yourself grace and your students that idea of like, let's learn it. Let's figure it out. I bet in 6 months it's going to change, because I don't actually care that my students know Photoshop or Illustrator. I want them to be somebody that they get a job someday. And that job says to them, this is a tool that we use. And I want my students and that future self to say, well, I don't know that tool, but I know how to learn them. And I know the steps I go through. And if we can give every kid walking away with that, I don't know how to do that, but I have strategies I use to learn tools. I'm confident that I'll be successful in that. We have like really gone so far for them. I think it's really incredible. So what are the kinds of tools? If you haven't worked with Adobe before, there's like more than 20. There's a lot of different things. We're going to hit Spark a bit today. Spark is so fun and easy and kind of can connect into anything. My students, my high school students, I'm like, do you guys use Snapchat? They all raise their hand. I'm like, well, then you don't need to like tutorials in Spark. You can just click and figure it out yourself. Some of the other ones are more complicated, and I'll tell you like how we kind of think through these things, but there's things to really work with photography, really simply and easily and intuitively do video and presentations. Kids can do web and app designs. XD is incredible. They can create their own like app design. And if you ever tell a student like we're going to design an app, all of a sudden you've got their attention. Illustrator is my personal favorite, but that is something that seems very specific. But a lot of the other ones, so we're going to really hit Spark a little bit harder today. But there's so many different kinds of tools out there, and I just think that students shouldn't be scared of them, and they have access to these things, because a lot of my students will pick these up and learn them on their own. And I'm just there to help them. And there's a lot of ways for them to do that. I just get out of the way. So Spark, if you haven't used it before, is pretty cool, because Spark allows you to make web pages, like instructional graphics or graphics of any kind, and video, really simple video. Again, it's click. And so there are templates, but also the interface is so completely simple. So this says social graphics, but it's actually so much more. My students do all sorts of things with this. You can create it in minutes. And then the amazing thing with it is that it works across all platforms. So students can have the apps on their phones or iPads or be on a Chromebook, and that they've logged in. So all their assets will connect. So they can be going for a walk and decide to add a picture to a video. So it makes it something at their hands. It's really, really simple. And Julie says, I've tried to teach myself Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so Julie, I'm going to show you the HelpX, because it's going to change your world. It takes you like step by step. So I'll put the thing in for that with Illustrator. Adobe Spark will work on Chromebooks, PCs, and iPads. They work on everything. Yeah. So Adobe Spark is pretty cool. You can use it on anything. Rush is another one that is really intuitive and easy to use. I'm going to tell you, I was really afraid of video creation. The interfaces overwhelm me, and Rush is really, really simple to have more control. So each time we're going to go like down from Spark into another thing, it's really just to have more control. And you kind of graduate yourself into like, I want to do this, but I can't do this program. I need a more advanced program. That's how we kind of think about it. I know I love Illustrator. Illustrator is like my favorite thing. So when we're teaching tools or thinking about tools, a couple considerations to make as an educator. First of all, you got to understand which tools are available, and the students need to know this. You can use this, this, or this. This is what's available. For this project, I'm super happy if you want to use paper, if you want to use, use Illustrator, or you want to use this other piece or whatever it's going to be. They need to know what's available to them. Then, surprisingly, students don't understand this, but why you would choose a specific tool. Are you going to make a presentation? This is important because I worked at an independent school in their innovation lab, and every student thought they were supposed to 3D print everything. I was like, why would you 3D print that? That makes absolutely no sense. So it can get very complicated. It's like, you can actually build that really easily with this. It makes more sense for the theme of your project. So why? Half the time you're going to spend, if you're working with students, the tools is not telling them what to click on. They should figure that out themselves. That's how they learn. But why you do that. And you get to do the big thinking. Don't waste your time on like what to click on. And then they need to learn how they learn tools best. Do they need to watch a tutorial? Should they read something? Do they need one-on-one instruction? I have my students engage in all of those at different times and figure out how they learn it best. I like videos, and I can stop them, rewind them. That's how I learned everything I've known. I've never taken a class in any of my software. I just learned it all through videos. And then kids have to learn where they go for more support. They will always get stuck. They need to know how to Google search it, or where to reputably get that information, because the Google searches will come out so strong. So really thinking through that, and like whatever tool they're using, who's the right resource to go through. And it's not raising my hand and waiting for you to come over there. And my students do that with me. I have older students, so I get to be mean, but I'm like, I won't steal that learning from you. And that's the first thing I say to them. I'm like, I trust you to engage in this productive struggle. And they hate me at first. And then in 3 minutes, they figured it out on their own. And I was like, how do you feel now? I feel really good. I'm like, great. I'm here to talk to you about big idea stuff. I'm the why, what makes sense. I'm not here to show you what to click on. Like I won't steal that from you. You need that. You don't need that. So I know I sound like a give a person. So why would you choose different things from Spark or different kinds of things? If you've not worked with these before, so first of all, when I'm working with one of these things, what do I want or need to create? Who is it for? That's how I'm thinking through things. And then finally, the big piece is how much time do I have, or how much experience do my students have? If I have a little bit of time, or my students have a little bit of experience, or I need them to make a lot of something, Spark is really great because it's so easy. That's like my students, their book things. They could, in a half an hour, they can make 3 different book covers. So we're not spending time learning tools, we're spending time engaging in like what cover is the most compelling. Instead, you're going to go to the Creative Cloud when you need more control, when you have more time, and when you have a little bit more experience. So just some things that happen with this. So Spark is great because it's responsive, it's really intuitive. It can make a lot of work in less time. Instead, the Creative Cloud, Illustrator, Photoshop, our more advanced programs are really professional. They're powerful. They build that tool resiliency. They help develop all tool knowledge. And I can tell you, like, there's nothing like a student walking down the hallway going, I used Photoshop today. It's industry standard. Like, they love that. So having some time to actually use more complicated tools will actually really engage them a lot of times. So what does that actually look like? Since Spark, we've had my students create memes, book covers, collages, all sorts of things really intuitively. Then we go to Illustrator or Creative Cloud. In this case, this is a poster my student designed. He drew every single one of those lines. Then he did multiple color studies. Like that's going to give you way more creative control. You're not using pieces that you're bringing in. So Spark becomes more of a collage piece, where some of the other ones you're really drawing, so you have total control over those things. So if you haven't been on, and we can explore this later, the best, and you will actually go on this if you haven't done this before, because you're going to register for this. The Adobe Education Exchange is it's edx.adobe.com, and this has hundreds of resources. So basically, Adobe hired 3 people from Stanford Education, and they've created this these master teachers who are creating content free for teachers to use. So there's courses if you want to learn something, and it could be about an idea. It doesn't have to be about a tool at all. Then they have a lot of resources for every single grade level. So you can be like social studies, you do a search. So we'll dig into that a little bit later. So the edX is a great thing as a creative educator to dig into. More resources come out all the time. There's a con and create piece. There's curated lists for things, and then you can get to know other educators as well. So how you can continue to learn and develop. Some things that we have available. First of all, you can follow the hashtag Adobe EDU Creative. That's for the Adobe Creative Educator program, the community that you're a part of now. There is the ACE space on the edX. That's edx.adobe.com, Adobe Creative Educator. If you just Google that, you'll find it. And that goes into anything new that's happening, that's going to be happening on the horizon. There's also a Facebook group. There's a Spark Facebook group that's open. So people have share lesson plans and things on Spark, talk about Spark. And then there's the ACE Facebook group, which is specifically for Adobe Creative Educators. You have to be let in. After you finish the course, then you apply, and then Leona goes in the background and makes sure everyone's credentials are right, and she lets them into the group. And there's specific content just for creative educators on that platform. And then finally, there's a live stream every Thursday that you can watch. You can watch later on if you don't want to watch it live, where 2 of our people on our team interview different people on different topics and share things. It's a half an hour. It's fun. It kind of gets you connected to the community. And then, of course, this summer, there is the Adobe for Education Summit. That's July 28th through the 29th. The link is there. I can put it into the chat. So this is free. There's like hundreds of educators presenting. You can go and it's really kind of amazing. So I'll go ahead and copy that later and put that into the chat again. If you want to go ahead and register for that event, it's the thing. There's also, once you register for it, every session's recorded. So if you're going to go back, so there will be sessions like how to use Illustrator if you've never used Illustrator before, or there's other things like a panel discussing like topics in like leadership and education. So there's kind of something for everybody if you're interested in joining that. And so now, awesome, absolutely. So yes. So that is, so what's your current creative self? So you've gone through, you've looked at it in different ways. Hopefully, my hope for this is that it's kind of like Dorothy. You've realized you've had the power all along. You know, you've been wearing those golden slippers. You are truly a creative powerhouse. It's who you are. So if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat, what's your current creative sense of self? And if it went up or down, you know, we're still at a 5, 5, 8, 9. I hope that each one of you realizes that you're just a little bit more creative than you thought. Up to a 9, awesome. 7, 8, 8. This is great. These are great numbers. It's just who we are. It's just who we are as people. So, and if we believe that for ourselves, I think we can really believe that for our students as well and help to foster that. That's great. We got up to a 6 for Kathy. More brain cells. Frankie's going that's great. That's 6. That's awesome, Frankie. Okay. From a 3 to a 5, that's great. Love it. So, you know, I hope you got something out. So in order to fulfill this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dig into Spark a little bit now. So I'm going to take you through a couple of steps and things. And so we have the 1-hour course, which you just got through. It's all very high level, as you know. But hopefully you got a couple of ideas to sort of spark your thinking as a creative educator. And we're going to create a graphic now. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And you can just do this in the session, get this all done right now. That's what this is designed for. Turn that thing in. You have basically a week to turn it in, but I would definitely turn it in right away since you've got time to do it now and explore Spark. And this is where you can, you know, chat with me. I'll show you how to do things at a couple different levels and you can investigate Spark a little bit if you've not used it. So what's going to happen is you're going to create a graphic that answers one of the following prompts. And I'm going to copy this and paste this in the chat as well. How will you support your students' creativity? Or you can choose what's your goal as a creative educator, either one of those things. And so in Spark, you're going to kind of create a graphic that's going to be that's going to answer that statement. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And I'll put these into the chat as well. You're going to share the graphic with us as a Spark link. And I'll show you how to do that. And then if you want to, you can share it out on social media if you use that. So let me go ahead. This is the bit.ly link. So I'm probably going to have to, I'm going to copy this. I like that it's not letting me. It's going to be stinky. Okay, I've got to actually stop sharing my screen for a minute. I'm going to put the bit.ly link and then I'm going to reshare my screen showing you the form that we're going to do. And the other piece, let me just stop for one moment. It's because it's not letting me copy. Okay, exit. Excellent. Awesome. Let's go over here. So this is this is the bit.ly link that you'll need to turn everything in, because then we'll have Leona on our team. We'll go and verify it for everybody. And these are the questions. So if you copy that bit.ly link right there that I put into the chat for everybody, that is going to take you, and let me go ahead and share my screen again. And I think that that should allow me to share my Google Chrome. Make sure I've got this one. There we go. Okay, so that should be shared here. So if you copy and paste that bit.ly link, it's going to bring you to this. Can everybody see my screen right here? So let me move this over here. Awesome. Okay, so that's the link, that's the bit.ly. And Kaylee, thanks for putting that in again. So if you open that up, and what it's going to ask is it's going to ask for your email address. Let me go back over here. And that's so we can email you your badge and all that content we talked about. It doesn't go to anybody else. And what's the name of your district institution so we can verify that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to create a new link in the edX, which is what I showed you. So I'm going to show you the edX for just a moment. But you can go to the edX.adobe.com. So all those links are actually, that's in here in this form. That's interesting. Let's go there. Here we go. So this is the Adobe Education Exchange. And you're going to go over here. I'm already logged in. You're going to go log in. But if you want help on figuring out how to log into it, there's that link in there as well. This takes you step by step. Click on the sign in button. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to click on create an account. And so you're going to create an account. You're going to sign in as a new user if you've not signed in before. And then
they are going to actually log in with Google.
Yes. So Google with their ISD account, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can actually click here, you can do continue with Google.
Yeah.
And then that's going to log in. So all of your credentials from Klein are what you're going to put into that. And then then on here, it's going to say you can upload an image if you want to your profile. You don't actually have to do that right away, but you can do that. And then you're going to copy the URL, which is that part, the address right up there. And that's what you're going to put into this answer here. So what's a link to your Adobe Education profile? And then you're going to create a Spark post. So let's give everyone a minute to do that if you've not logged in, and then we're here to answer questions. So we want to get you onto the edX. And so as you're doing that, I'm just going to show you a couple of cool things on the edX. So the edX is really cool. I'm telling you, like, they brought into it the brightest and most brilliant people. So here, you can search for resources by like K-12, digital media. There's higher ed things as well. There's self-paced courses that you can find. So this one's Teach Creativity with Adobe and Khan. That's a course. Preparing students with essential creative skills. That's another kind of course. There's Spark in the classroom. So if you've never used Spark, that's a course you can take. So all these are free courses and they're just videos, they're self-paced. Within those, there are resources that you can use. So the other thing you can do, they have actually lesson plans you can get into. And there's this really cool curated list of distance learning resources. So all it is a bunch of free resources that teachers like you are creating that have been trained by Adobe. And then inside of those lesson plans, for example, they'll have, we can look at a few of them. They will have like tutorials for your students. They'll have rubrics for you. They'll have the entire experience. So if you want to go up here and search, you can be like, you can go over here to like my subject. I want to teach science and engineering. That's what I teach. Then education level, I'm looking for 3rd through 5th grade. And then I might have a product I want, or if I don't care about that, then I can go through and scan a bunch of resources that are already designed. This is, and so there's a lot of different things you can do. Growth Mindset Activity Series. That's actually a really cool one that's been created by a really amazing educator. So you can go in here, it tells you the learning objectives, the tools you're going to use, the standards that it covers, and it has ratings as well. So if you like something, all you have to do is hit the little bookmark thing and it's going to save for you. So let me just make sure, I'll check back in again. Is everybody having any issues signing in? And then I'm going to sign you into Spark next.
So once we've logged into Google, what are we supposed to do next with the URL?
Okay, so you went to the edX and you clicked sign in right here. Okay. Then you're going to click Google and you're going to create an account. You're going to do email address, make a password, and create your account. Did you do that much?
Yeah, I did the sign in with Google. So
awesome. Sign in with Google. Okay. So then here at the top, it's going to be like, you're going to see like your name and your, you can add different kinds of content to it. Your URL will be up at the top. You're going to click on that, select it.
The whole thing, right?
The whole thing. And then you're going to put it. And the reason we're doing this is because they have to go in and give you your badge through the edX. Like it's a verification. So if you go to my edX, let me see, this is my educate. I have 2 different ones, but if I go here, my profile, I have 2, I have to have them merge them. You see my professional development, I have the level 1 badge. They'll give it to you there. And like, that's the class, like I can download my certificate. And so they'll go through in the back end and do this for you. And so that's kind of, that's what somebody has to do, because normally you'd watch the videos and get all that stuff. So that it's going to tell you your badge. You can find new people. So if I go here, account settings, my education exchange. So you see here, I see Rebecca Hare. I have the badges and different things that I've earned. You'll see it there. And then these are the courses I've signed up for. So I've added them to my learning. So this actually it's cool because you can curate resources that you want within the edX. So it's the big thing that I clicked to log in, I finished without me having to press Google. Either way, as long as you log in with with your school account, it should work. So if you want to type all that in, so we get that URL. So let's hit Spark then, if everyone's okay that we move forward. So the next thing on this that it asks us to do, this is just the verification for you to get that certificate. where it's a link to your Spark post. So let's talk about Spark. Some of you, I'm sure, have used it and are really familiar with Spark. Some of you have maybe never used it before. I can tell you I've become like Spark obsessed, and my students, we can go over it generally, but my students create their own web portfolios in Spark page. So you can create websites and you can play around with this. It's click and like, it's literally the easiest thing. You can create really cool graphics. So so we're going to log into Spark. Let's make sure you know how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and log out. So I'm going to sign out. If you go to spark.adobe.com, I'll pop that into the chat. That is where, there you go. That is you're going to get something like this if you've never logged in before. And so I could be wrong, but I would say you probably want to log in with a school account. Is that right? For
Yeah,
Klein?
so we click continue with Google, and then it's going to ask us to select, and we'll select enterprise account.
Yeah. So you can, either one of these will get you to the same place. If you click continue with Google, and so I'm going to use my Clayton Schools account. And then you choose enterprise, not Adobe ID, because enterprise gives you because your school has associated itself with this, it gives you all the premium features for free. And so it's pretty amazing. So if you don't do that, then you end up having a lot of things that are blocked that you can't use that because they've made it specific. So you want to click that enterprise ID. And then that will verify you. And if you've never used it before, you'll get some sort of like a Spark homepage. I've used it a lot, so mine looks like this. Sign me in and have enterprise option. So if you're logged in with your, check in the top that we click over here, Jacelyn, and here, just make sure that it gives you your client account there, and that should be correct. Then that should work. And you should have everything set up for that. So we're going to talk about making a graphic. Then if you have some questions about other things, I can show you a little bit more. But see, it's kind of cool because they have these things. So like, first of all, it's like, do you want to make something from a template, a collage, a web page? You can actually search for just about anything you want up here. So like book cover, this is how my students did their book project. They clicked on book cover and then they found templates that they liked and they could rework them, reimagine them. So if you want to make a mood board, you type in mood board. So this neat thing is it gives you templates that already exist that then you can go in and modify, or you can start off from scratch. So I'm going to go back home. And so you see there's all different kinds of things. So I can make, again, a simple video. I can make a web page, or I can make a graphic in Spark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Instagram post because I like Instagram and that's a square format. And I'm going to make my graphic on that. Oh yeah, and there is such a cool, Erica, there's a really cool animation feature in Spark, I know. There's so many things. So if you're someone who's like, I get this, I'm just gonna dig around and ignore me. If you're somebody who's like, I need a little bit more support, just hang on and we'll do this together. So what's cool is I just opened up that and this is my interface, right? So on the left, I have templates, I have text, I have photos. There's icons, design assets, backgrounds, logos, and libraries. We could spend days talking about these things. On the right, I get colors, animation, background, resize, and design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from a template. Those of you who don't need to start from a template or haven't used before, so I'm going to scroll down. You'll get things that are popular. You're going to get things that, so you can go down until you find something that you like. So actually, I'm going to go here, and these are templates. I'm looking for something that might work well for a quote, because remember, you're going to answer that question. Yes, you're going to answer that question. So Linda, where did we leave you off? I'm sorry. So I'll go back home. Don't save. So I'm going to, from this point right here, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to choose Instagram post. Any format you want will work. And that's just an easy. So if you logged in, if enterprise didn't show up for people, is that maybe just because they're already logged in on their account?
Yes, it could be. We're also switching our dashboard over from one single sign-on to a new single sign-on, and it could be that as well.
Yeah. So you should if you get into this point and your email is up there, you're probably just fine. So here you're going to see a bunch of different options. You can scroll down. Mine, because it knows I'm an educator. It's like, hey, here are some things you can create for your classroom. So there's a lot of different things on this. I'm going to go ahead and just click Instagram post because I'm going to choose a square format. So I'm choosing the paper. I'm choosing the size I'm going to work on. So you can choose a different size, but if you've never done this before, go ahead and click on that Instagram post. And what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of templates. So these are things that you can rework, and they're going to show up right here under templates. If I lose that, if I close it out, I can click on templates again, and they're going to show up. So I've got featured templates here. This is what's going on right now that they like. So I can just scroll here. You do not have to have an Instagram account to choose Instagram. It's just the format. It's just a square format. So it's, if you want, you could choose a different format. You can make it a letter sized. We're just choosing a square format. So you absolutely don't have to have Instagram. It's not connected at all. But if you want to put it on Instagram, it would be the right size for an Instagram screen. So I'm going to scroll down until I find something that I like. I like kind of like this one. I'm going to scroll. I kind of like this one. Maybe I'm going to use this one. So so you should be doing the same thing. Scroll down because you're going to put a quote in there. It's going to be your answer. So what do you like? And there's hundreds and hundreds of these. So you can click on these, and I'm going to show you how to kind of reformat them. So they keep loading more and more of these. So it's fun because graphic designers are basically just paid constantly to create these that we can then just rework ourselves. So I'm going to click on, I kind of like this script, but I kind of like this one. So I'm going to click on this template, and I'm going to say create from this template. And what's going to happen is it's going to put all that stuff onto that white square I had. So that's me using a template. I'll show you in a minute how to work from scratch as well. And everyone else who's used Spark before, just go to town. When teaching students in the library using Chromebooks, says each student need their own account. Each student will have their own account when they log into the Chromebook. And so what will happen is that they'll log into the Chromebook, then they'll log into Spark with their Klein ISD email account, and then that will give them their own Spark account. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how it works for everybody.
Yes, that's correct. And so Adobe Spark is actually on the Klein dashboard. So students can just go to the Klein dashboard and click on the Adobe Spark icon and get to it from there.
Cool. So it's going to grab my template. And again, there's like this one's got a picture in it. It's got this kind of background. Now, sometimes, especially when I'm presenting, Spark can be a little slow. There might be a longer loading. You have to think that this is probably like one of the most sophisticated design programs that runs over a web browser. So sometimes the students, things like won't load. Usually if you wait a couple minutes, it'll load again. But it especially happens to me when I'm presenting in front of people. So there now, all that template that I clicked over here is now over in my space. So I'm just going to close this out because I don't want to look at templates anymore. And please let me know if I'm going too fast again. It's kind of it's a click and sort of, figure things out kind of space. So this says make the most of it. Now I'm going to go back to wanting to make that answer. I'm going to put this into the chat again. How will you support your students' creativity, or what's your goal as a creative educator? I'm going to answer what's my goal as a creative educator. That's that question we're going to have you, because we're kind of creating our little mini manifesto right now as a graphic and getting comfortable with a graphic design program. So if I click over the text, the make, if I click on it, and I'm going to click it twice, it brings me to an editing space. So you can see I have make the. So this is this is maybe I chose a more complex one because it's put them on different levels. But I'm going to go ahead and put I'm going to say my screen asks if I want to start my trial and not let me load the background. Okay, so Linda, you probably logged in with a different Google account. Make sure that we can try to troubleshoot that. That would be just, you probably want to log out. Is your school email. Probably starting from the beginning again. Try logging in through the dashboard there. So I'm going to say my goal as a creative educator is to help all my students be creatively courageous. So whatever your statement is, you can type it in. So you see that this editing thing kind of opens up, and I'm going to say done. Now what's going to happen is it's going to resize all that text I wrote, and I can delete other things. So if I like the way that it is, I've got this I'm going to actually, just like you would on any other kind of like on Word, I can click on this and hit delete. So I'm going to delete these other words over here. Of course, I picked the most complicated one to go off of. I'm going to move this over. There we go. I've got this picture in front. Sorry about that for everyone who's new on this. I clicked on a complicated one. They've made these slightly more complicated. And they've grouped this. I'm going to ungroup this. Okay. So I can delete. We might even want to start from scratch. So I'm just going to show you how to do this. Then we'll go on another one from scratch. So I would say watch me first, and then we'll go through and we can do it again. So what's neat is I have this text up here. I can click on the little white dots on the side and just resize them. As I make this box bigger, my text gets bigger. You should have access to premium templates, I believe. So let's make sure that we've logged in through the dashboard. Let's get that solved. So my goal as a creative educator is to help all my students be creatively courageous. What's fun now is I can change my font over here. As you can click through and all of a sudden make a ton of different changes. I can also click on this over here. I can replace my background. It looks like my background is an image. I can change the color of my font. So if I click on this, you can see it's giving me an outline. Of course, I chose the most complicated thing. I can take the outline away. Now it's white. And what's neat is once I can sit and play with this as long as I want to. So I can maybe make it smaller. I can go through and maybe I want my background to be blue. I can say remove my background. And you're gonna have to just kind of tinker and be a little bit courageously creative and see until you feel sort of comfortable. So we'll go with, oops, something went wrong. Of course it did. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna remove the background. Remove the background. It's gonna give me some sort of problem. I might start from something from scratch for you all because they've made these beautiful, but a little bit complicated. I'm afraid I'm gonna get the error message again. All right, let's move out of this one because it's going to give me some sync. But let's say I'm happy with this the way that it is. In order to share your link to the form that we gave you, you hit share and you can say publish, and then that's going to give you. It's going to create a link to what we created, and I can put it into that file. So once it's going to generate a link for you, and then that link you can put in. So we have evidence of your artifact of learning. I hit copy and then I can go over here. So we're going to start that whole process again, but that's where you can put the link to your Spark post. And if you did do a social media post, you can put that in there. If you want to share your Twitter handle, it's just something for us to follow. That's what we do that. So awesome. So let's go back into Spark again and start again. So for everyone, so we kind of gave you an idea. So maybe I'm going to start from scratch this time. That might be a little bit easier. So every time I want to get out of something, I just hit the home button in the top, the SP. That brings me back to home. And then from there, I can create a web page. I can create other things. But we're going to stick to Spark Post for just a little bit and then give you some space in that. So it's going to save my post. And today it's going to be very slow because it's going to be really, it's just going to be really slow. It's doing this because I'm here. Adobe Education Exchange takes up a lot of power, so I'm going to close these out. I don't need them right now. That might help me out. But Spark usually is a little faster than this. So let me get this thing uploaded, and I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to show you another way to create your graphic. And hopefully in the background you're kind of tinkering. So I can choose a different format this time. So remember, when we choose our format, that's just like the size that we're going to be working in. That's just like choosing a size of paper. And there's a digital learning checklist. That's awesome. There's also on the edX a whole intro into Spark. We're just trying to do enough that we can get you can feel comfortable and you can get your graphic done today and turned in. So it's going to give me a second. I might have to reload my page. This is just like when you're in front of all your students and like the tech doesn't work on you all the time. This is just like the story of my life. Okay, so I'm gonna go here, back home. Okay, so I'm gonna choose something different. You can go over here. I chose the Instagram post just because it was right there, but you can also go over here and choose custom size. I'm trying not to overwhelm anybody too much. but and we're not going to go as deep as Spark. That's, for another day, but I'm going to go ahead. I'll just choose Instagram post again. That's going to give me that square, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. So rather than starting from a template, I'm going to choose the text and add it in, and then add a background image in as well. So I'm going to close up my templates. So basically this is like Spark just gave me a blank piece of paper, like you might to a student. So it's just, think about this square as a blank piece of paper. I'm going to add some text onto it. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to click on the text bar over here on the left. And what's fun is I can just add text, or no, you can't copy and paste directly into Spark. It's kind of a bummer, but you can save it to your desktop. But let me show you how you can find images, Pavani. So give me just a second, I'll show you that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose a font. So you can scroll down, there are all of these different templates of text that have been set up for you. So I'm going to choose this one that's like a script, and I click on that, and it's going to put that into on my blank piece of paper, right on my little Instagram post. So I can close out my text, and I'm going to change it. Then you can see once I have that chosen, I can change the color, I can change the font, I can change a lot of things. So I'm going to go ahead and write my goal as a creative educator is to foster creativity in all my students. Done. So you'll see in that window now, I don't like this yellow. I can go over here to my text color. I can change it. I have the entire color spectrum. So I might choose I'm going to choose like this kind of pink color. I can make it darker by changing like the intensity of my color over here. So I'm going to change it to that pink color. And then again, I can resize this. So if I grab the little white dots on the side, you can see that it'll get bigger and it'll change. I can also play around with a couple of other things. This gets, I can decide this is now aligned in the center. I can align it to the left or to the right. And we're keeping this really simple. Yeah, you've got to upload it to add it, or you can save it to your desktop. So let me show you how you can find images. So I'm going to put this on top of a background image. So I'm going to go over here to photos. This is how I like to do this. You can also click on backgrounds. That's going to give you something else. So they've got like textured backgrounds. So you could choose that. So Adobe Spark comes preloaded with all of these incredible elements. But how you can actually find a photograph. You actually, if you click on this, you can upload photos from your own desktop, or you can connect it to your Google Photos or your Google Drive. If you work with library, you can create libraries, but I like to find free photos. So I'm going to try to find, I'm going to search for photos. So I can search dog, and I'm going to find a ton of photographs with dogs in them. I can choose sunset, and I'll find a ton of sunsets, all different kinds of sunsets. So whatever you want to search in, I'll show you how to do that again. You go over here to your left, you go down to photos, and I'm going to choose find a free photo. This gives you access to all sorts of photographs that you can bring in. So instead, I'm going to look for paint, because I'm like creativity, like some messy paint. I click on paint, I hit enter, and I have hundreds and hundreds of awesome photographs that I can use. So I think I'm going to choose, I love this little girl. I'm going to choose something I can put my text on top of that I like. So maybe this swirly paint piece right here, or something else. So you just scroll down until you like something that you find, these paint brushes or this paint. I'm going to choose one. Let's choose this one, like the paint brushes. And what's going to happen is it's going to place that in. So here it is. And this is a fun, so I'm going to close my photographs, but I don't want it up here in the corner. That looks weird. So the neat thing with Spark is that you can resize things. So I'm going to go overhead and I'm going to make this really big. But now I've covered up my text, but that's not to worry, because you can actually over here, once I have that selected, I can change the layer order. So this allows you to duplicate something, to replace the image if you don't like what it is, or you can change it. So I'm going to make it move down to the bottom. So now my text is on top, but now I can't see my text. So I click on my text. I'm going to change it to white or something that's much lighter that I can see. So I can so you're going to kind of go and tinker until you get something that you like. So I'm going to resize this a little bit more so it's on top of all the paint. And you can tinker and move this around. I can play with shapes. There's shadows to add. There's a bunch of things you can just click on and see what happens. You can also change your text to like go on a grid, or have other kinds of, we won't go there, it might be too crazy. You can change the transparency of an image. Excellent. So I can go over here. If I click on my image, you see I've got that image selected because those white dots show up. I can go right down here and pull this, and that makes it more transparent. So that's a fun thing to do. I'll show you something else that's really amazing. So I'm going to maybe make this a little bit more transparent. And I'm going to add something else to this. I can also throw a filter on it, by the way. So this is a duotone filter. So I've suddenly just taken this picture and made it all yellow and blue. Or maybe I want it to be pink and purple. So I'm just clicking on things and like, well, and I'm not doing all the hard work on like adjusting things. I'm just choosing what I like. I can also add a matte format to it, or I can add a contrast format. So you can click or I can colorize the whole thing to be a certain color. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it duotone like this. Duotone is so fun. Totally agrees. Duotone is also really, let me show you something else with duotone. I did a whole project with my students with this, and this is brand new, but I'm going to show you something else that's going to be amazing that you're going to love. So I'm going to try to put like a teacher or somebody in here. So if I go back to photographs, there's design assets as well. So if we go to design assets, I can search up any kind of thing and it's going to give me some really beautiful pieces. So let's say I want an illustration. I want to have like little pieces of that. So I can go click on more, and you see all of these different kinds of illustrations. Maybe I want to have a heart or a star. So, or I want to have like food. There's objects, there's all sorts of things. And what's neat about this is I'm going to get this like a little schoolhouse. I'm going to click on this little house. I can bring that house in, and it's going to pop into my space, and I can move it around wherever I want it. I can resize it. I can also throw filters on that as well if I want to. If I don't like it, I just can hit delete, or I can hit the trash can right here. So those are some really fun things to have. So I think I might choose, and I'm going to look for an arrow. So you can also have a search feature for that. Oh, it's so great for haiku. You can make the most beautiful things, and students really love this. So I've clicked on arrow. So I'm going to, yeah, maybe I'll put this arrow here. I click on that arrow, and it's going to throw that arrow into my piece. And what's neat is I can now go over here. I can rotate my arrow. And if I don't like the color of this, I can do the same thing I did with my background image. I can throw a filter on it, and that's going to change its color. So I can, maybe I want that to be purple. I'm going to put that in there. So that's a fun thing. I can resize it, make it much smaller, and I can rotate. So you're basically kind of making collages digitally on a Chromebook or any kind of device that you really want. So I'm going to have my little arrow there, and I'm going to add one more thing in. This is the thing that's brand new, which you might be really excited about. Photos. I'm going to find a free photo, and I'm going to look for a dancer. Or let me see if I can find a teacher. Whenever they do teachers, it's always like, it's usually like really kind of up close. No, this is not me. I don't like any of these things. So I might think of something else. How about creative? Let's see what I get. Oh, look at these students, how fun that is. That's really great. So what's cool is you can pick something out that you want to isolate and remove the background. So dancers are easier. You can have your own picture. Dancer. I'm going to find a dancer on here. All right, let's choose this one. And the reason I'm doing this, it is really, really cool for literary response. And the thing is that there's so many choices, but you have a lot of control and constraints as well. So this looks awful because this dancer is on this weird blue background and doesn't really fit with my whole vibe I've got going on here. This is brand new to Spark. It's like not even a month old. If I click on this, I can click on remove background, and look what happens. I'm actually gonna make it bigger so you can see a little bit better. I click on remove background. So you can bring your own images in. Like you can have a picture of yourself or your students, and you've got some ugly, junky background. Look what happened. Spark, the genius in Spark cut out everything. This is this is so awesome. So good. The Spark cuts out everything. I can also choose to restore pieces. So if it made a mistake, I can be like, no, I want this in, or I want that in. So I can just paint what I want to restore, and it's going to bring that back in. Or I can erase things. I want to erase that. I don't want to keep that out. So you actually can control the backgrounds that are in objects. So this is mind blowing. And I saw this when I was at Adobe like 4 years ago as a creative educator. Oops, I cut her hand off. Let me restore that one back in. You can change the size of everything. So my paintbrush is too big. I'll make it smaller. I can also zoom in. So I'm going to add her hand back in, and I'm going to say, okay, so now I've got this dancer. It is sorcery. I have this dancer, and it's like, okay, she still looks kind of cool. Let's throw an effect on her. And that duotone effect is really fun. Ooh, now I have an orange dancer. That's a little bit more interesting. I can put her over here. And then maybe I need I'm gonna reshape my creativity piece again. And now let's talk about one more thing. So like, I'm not saying this is the best thing I've ever designed in my life. I was trying to show you all a few different features with it, but you can see how much and how easy it is. And this is what I mean. Like if students can use, like they at all touch computers, they're gonna be just fine to use this without any problem. So let's say I'm really excited about this one right now, okay? I'm gonna name this version 1. And then right up here at the top, you can rename things. It's gonna hit save. And this is the magic of like having students make multiples in something. I'm gonna go back over to home. And you're gonna see that I just created this and you can follow along as well. I'm going to go in, I've got my project right here. It's called version 1, it's a post. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on the 3 little dots at the top and I'm gonna say duplicate. It's gonna duplicate my entire file. I'm gonna call this version 2. Now, naming conventions is a whole other topic for another day, but your students will only have a bunch of my posts if you don't teach them to give it different names. Yeah, no, it's really, really fun, Linda, I agree. So this is what's really awesome. So I just made that one and like, it's okay, but I don't wanna lose it. I don't wanna keep tinkering because I think I've got something good going. I'm gonna go in version 2 and I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep some of the same elements, but I'm gonna rework them in a new way. So now I think I might go in and change the font. So there's 2 ways I can do this. I can choose font myself, or I can go to find a new style at the bottom. This is a style wand. And I can click on it and it will give me infinite different ways that this text can show up. And I just have to keep clicking. And like, okay, I like this one. Then I can take it, I can resize it. And maybe now I'm like, you know what? It doesn't look good, this yellow color. I like it like this, not as a, let's do that. I think it should be purple. So look how cool this is. I click on this over here. I want it to be that exact purple I've got right here. There's a little eyedropper tool. You click on that and you can hover over the purple and then now my text will be the same color purple that I had before. Yeah, the style wand is really fun. It's really, so now I don't like my background anymore. I want to change that out. So maybe I'm just going to go over here to replace and I'm going to find a brand new image and it's showing me all the paint images again. Maybe I want to do a stage because I'm a theater teacher and that excites me. So I'm going to try to find something that feels like a stage. I can change that background up by just hitting replace and like, ooh, and it keeps all the filters I put on it, but I've just changed the content out. So again, this is taking me minutes to do. I'm going to take my little arrow. I'm going to maybe move that over. And maybe I want to make sure my dancer is like on the stage. So it looks like she's really there and she doesn't look like she's enormous because that's like there. And then maybe I want to add something else in. I can also grab my background and I can crop and shape it and drag some pictures down and move things around a little bit if I don't like the way that it is. I can also add an image inside of a shape. We can spend all day in Spark. It keeps changing and getting better. And so I can go back in and design it. Maybe I want to add an icon in. This phone was already in here. Maybe I want to have, see what I get if I say stage. I might, oh, these fun little icons happen. Ooh, maybe I want to do lights, like stage lights. I'm going to do lights and stage and oops, nope, that doesn't happen. Let's just try lights. So you can bring icons in. Oh, these are pretty fun. Oh, perfect. These are like stage lights. So I can bring this little icon in. I just found that underneath icons, you search for whatever it is you want. I don't like the color again. So I'm going to change my color from that weird orange color and it's going to say your current palette. So I've already chosen that purple. So I can just click on the purple and now I've got my stage lights up and I can decide to resize them, right? Or replace them or move things around however I want. And maybe I don't like them, I can delete them. So what I just did was I took all those same things. I didn't have to rewrite anything and I made a version 2. I can go back home. I don't have to save it. It just saves automatically. And so now you see 2 recent projects that I made. Then I could do the same thing, click duplicate and make another one. So this is a great way to have students work and iterate on things and not lose their previous work. And so then I can share 3 or 4 of these and say, which one do you think is making the most impact? Yeah, and so if you, this person through the creation background features again, yes, I can show you real quick on how to do the background again. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this again. So I make another version of it. This is going to be my version 3. And again, I'm comfortable with this. You really can add a comfort to this by just tinkering for just a little bit. It doesn't take too long. And I know we probably need to be wrapping up here pretty soon. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to edit my version 3. I'm going to bring something else in. And I'll show you how to remove the background. So because like Kaylee already has tutorials on that, so I'll just do it live right now. So we go here. I'm going to hit upload, find a free photo. So I had a dancer before. Maybe I want to have a clown. And I'm looking for something that I can remove the background on. Okay, some of these are creepy. Clowns are creepy. That was a really weird. Why did I choose clown? Let's try dancer again. It's fun when you have your own thing to remove. But so I'm going to choose these 2 dancers, or which one do I want to have? I want to get something I'm going to have a whole image on, because otherwise it's really weird to cut out. So that's one of the things you've got to think about. So like, how about these 2 dancers? So this is cool because it will kind of do a really good job figuring that out. So I'm going to make it bigger. When I have my image selected, I go here to remove backgrounds. And it's going to do thinking, it's going to think, and it's going to do a pretty darn good job of removing. Yep, look at that. It removed the background. Sometimes, again, it doesn't work perfectly. So you can go in, you can erase more, or you can restore things. But I'm going to go ahead and say, okay. And now I have these 2 characters that I can add to my stage if I want to. So it's really, really, really fun. This is the first time using Spark. Are you able to create classrooms for your students? No, it does not work. That there are not classrooms available with Spark. The students have their own accounts and they work with things, but you can provide feedback depending on how you have them turn things in. So there's my people. I'm going to go ahead and add a filter to it. And I can do maybe contrast, or I'll do a matte filter this time. And there we go. So if I don't like any one of these things, I can keep editing. I can click on this and keep finding a new style. And it's going to keep regenerating this with different ways to do it in different styles. Or I can go in and change the color or the font myself. So this is just for today. We just got through kind of Spark Post with just sort of one format. Again, if you go back to the home screen, you can Google a lot of different things not Google, but you can go up here in the search bar. You can see what's on there. There's collage, there are invites, there's flyers, there's things about travel. There's a whole thing dedicated to lifestyle and education. And you can click on all those templates. Things to also figure out are the web pages. All my students make web pages. It's really simple. It's really beautiful in this. And then there's the video is also really, really easy. You can record audio over, you can add music, you can add pictures in. We have 2nd graders and 1st graders working with the video, and it's really intuitive. So it's pretty fun. So how do we link what we made into the Google form? Excellent question. So I'll go back into my project. Let's choose this one. Once you're inside of your project, you're going to go up here to share, and you can click publish. And that's going to generate a link that will take somebody directly to this, this graphic. And so you just click on the link button right there. It's going to create the link. And then I hit copy, and I can go right into that Adobe Creative Educator, that form we gave you, and you can paste it right on here. So Control or Command V will paste it right in there. And if you shared it out on social media, it would be awesome if you use the Adobe EDU Creative hashtag, if you want to put it on Twitter or anything else. And if you have a Twitter handle and you want to share it with us, you don't have to share it if you don't have one or don't want to share, but that does allow the education profile to start to follow you in what you do. So I'm here to answer questions if we got, but I think that we got 10 minutes left. So any questions you all have, I'll stop sharing my screen, or I can share things in Spark. I'm happy to help you out, but thank you so much for being here today. And it was really exciting to work with everyone at Klein.
Thank you, Rebecca. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so Teresa didn't create the link. I just have the URL, but you can highlight and then go to the site. So you really do need to generate that share. And that is because if you put the URL up here, it won't let anybody else see it. So make sure you go through that share thing and hit the publish. And that's what's going to give you, and that is going to give you a URL link that you can copy and paste. Oh, my Twitter, I'm gonna put in a thing. It's funny because I haven't been on Twitter in a while. I'm pretty bad about Twitter. I put that into the chat. But it's a really good way to contact me if you have any questions or anything else. So let me just make sure. I just changed my Twitter profile. I've like forgotten what it is.
So for those of you who are interested, we also are offering a Schoology or an online course through Schoology that's on Adobe Spark and using it with your students, where you'll go through a post, a video, and a web page. And that's running in both June and July, and you can sign up in Eduphoria.
Yeah, and to answer Caitlin's question, there is level 2, and that is available on the edX as well. And so that's a video. So it's kind of like we did this live session. We're not really doing level 2 live right now because we're so busy, but that gives you can watch the videos, and then it asks you to kind of create a video and go a little bit deeper. But yeah, and once you're part of the community, hopefully we're gonna have a level 3 and other things, but there's so much on the edX for you to engage in. And it sounds like within Klein ISD as well. So thank you all I hope you're energized for the summer. I'm excited to kind of, have some time off, but thank you so much for engaging and sharing all your wisdom with us today. It was really awesome to be with you all. So I hope you have a really awesome rest of your day. And I'm here if there are any questions, if you want to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's so funny, and it's so hard to see how many people are here. Kaylee, how many people did we have inside the meeting?
We had about like 54 people.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we had great attendance. And I know there were some people who got kicked off the internet or had meetings, so that some of them left. But that's okay because we're recording it.
Rebecca, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, first off, thank you. This is very helpful. I did not think I would be able to do this, and I'm amazed at how I was able to use the tools and actually create something. So if I could do it, anybody can do it.
Anyone can do it.
So I tweeted out what I made. How do I link that into the Google form?
Okay, let me show you again. I think I'm still sharing. So
Yes,
if you go right here, so you're gonna hit that share button.
Yeah.
And that publish, and it's going to give you the link.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you can click on that link. It's generated it for me here. So once you click on that, it'll generate it for you. You're going to go hover over it, select it, Command or Control C. If you're on a Mac, you're going to do Command C. If you're on a PC, you're going to do Control C. And then you're going to go right here into the form, and then you do Command or Control V. We'll paste it into that.
I did, but then like on that previous screen of the share screen, I actually went ahead and clicked Twitter, and I like posted it out on Twitter. And I think one of the questions is like, what is the link to your social media post?
So if you're in Twitter, let me see how to do that. That's so if you go into Twitter and you want to copy a link, what you can do is the 3 little dots.
Okay.
You can, is that what I'm trying to figure out? I think you've got to click on the actual post. I'm just randomly choosing something. I want Pampers. If I click on the post, that's where I've got to figure out how to do this, because that's the link. You could embed, tweet, block. Is it embed? Kaylee, do you know how to do this?
Is it the
It
little
probably have to be your own post, maybe.
I found it.
Maybe so. Let me see if I can link my own post in home.
I did.
Catherine, what did you say?
Once you're in your post, there's a little share button on the bottom right, and then it gives you the option to copy link to.
Awesome. Cool. There you go. So
Thank you.
And then if you, so that's something. It's like I was like, oh, we're sharing them out, but the thing is we don't, because some people share them out on Instagram, so we don't give instructions for that. And some people's Instagrams are private, so it's just something. It's nice because if we have this, then when they go through this, so a person goes through all of this. Leona, she's amazing, and she like has to go in the back end and give everyone their badges. And so she'll be like, okay, let's flag this, make sure that we retweet it, and like we so it's a way for us to just create more community. Let's see, Annie, if I copy this.
I just copied the one in the web address.
So yeah, you don't want to copy that one because I can't see that one. Let me show you again.
No, the Twitter.
Oh, the Twitter. Yeah, it says a story had the Spark one. I see spark.adobe.com post. What you want to, because you haven't posted it out yet. So what you want to do is click on link this one and copy this one out.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
actually,
if
I
you click on
copied.
Twitter, it's going to open your Twitter and put it there.
Oh,
So what
okay.
so what I do is go back into Spark and just click on that link, and you can click the copy button there or Control C, and then you go in here and just paste that there. And that's Command or Control V. And that's going to give us that link. So if I open up a browser right now and I paste that in there, you see and this is what you see. You see the graphic.
Okay.
And so it generates a specific URL just for that graphic.
Okay.
Yeah, and any yours did not work.
Can I try mine? Let's see if it works. Hold on. Okay, let's see. I'll put it in chat.
Oh, just stop processing. Let me see this one. Twitter. Yep. Awesome. I see it. That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah,
that's
the link I put. Okay.
Yeah, it's great. Annie, are you still not able to make it work? No. Okay. So let's think. What have you done? Let me get back over here. You're here. You made your graphic, and then you did share. Is that right? It might just be processing. Sometimes restarting. So the process is just click share and click that publish, and then link and copy. Yeah, so if you wanna pop it into the chat here, you got an error. When you copied it, you did this gave you out an error right now. Sorry, Annie's texting me anything. Yeah, okay. What I would do if that happens, it's kind of like all the tech support people, it's like go back to the beginning. And I would just go back here and I'd open it up again, go back home and start it again. And so you can go over here and you can edit project and then go back and try it again. Sometimes it just needs to refresh. Sometimes it's such a powerful program that it sometimes just gets a little bit clunky at times, but usually just refreshing things will work. Awesome. It does autosave. Yeah, that's the cool thing about it, which causes some laziness in my students from time because they're used to things autosaving. Let's see. Does what look like settings? This is how mine does. I'm not sure.
She is looking for the link to the Adobe Exchange profile.
Oh, okay. So when we do this, let me go back over here. If we go back to the Adobe Exchange thing, this is the setting things up. You're going to get, so once you log in and you go over here to my profile, then you click on my profile when you're logged in. It looks like this, not Tanya Alvarez, but it'll be your name. You're going to copy this edX.adobe and it'll be member and it'll have some sort of a number after it. Because otherwise you're in the settings and that's what we can't. So let's try to get that, Teresa, see if that works for you. So I need to log in. Unfortunately, my regular account, it's a little bit of a stinker because I've set up this extra security through it and I've got to click on 10 different things. So I have my school account open, but I can open up on my school account. Let me get back over here again. So I'm going to click on, I'm going through two different screens. I'm going to go back over here and this is the edX. I click on edX. It's going to giving me a redirect notice. I don't know why. And then I'm already logged in. So if I go on my profile, you can see this is what mine looks like. And I can just copy this thing right here. So it should be edX.adobe.com member and then some random numbers and things. And I can do Command or Control C and then go right in here and then Command or Control V, depending if you're a Mac. And then that's what it should look like, edX.member. And if you get anything else, it's probably not the right thing. Awesome. Well, all right. I hope everyone had a good time. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and log off.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you all.